Okay, I'll introduce myself. You tell me when you're ready. I know the drill at this point. I'm Renard Adams, Renard. I'm the Chief of Research, Assessment, and Accountability with Portland Public Schools. I'm also a member of the bargaining team. Whatever else we disagree about, we agree that students must be at the center of our decisions. In that spirit, we have formally asked PAT's bargaining team to not strike tomorrow, to keep schools open and stay with us at the bargaining table. Over the last 24 hours, since PAT told us they would not respond to our offer from last week, we've prepared a new offer. It represents our attempt to accept PAT's proposals within our fixed revenue, our operational limitations, and Oregon's laws. We offered elementary educators exactly what PAT proposed, 440 minutes of planning time. We offered contract language to ensure healthy and safe schools, language anchored in Oregon and federal laws. We offered a new special education language that ensures our students have the social, emotional, mental, and behavioral health supports. This has been hard but incredibly productive work. We thank our PAT colleagues for their productive engagement on this issue. I'd also like to be clear about where we are unable to accept their proposals. We have already offered a cost of living increase that is more than our increase in revenue. We know the union's bargaining team believes that it's insufficient, but we cannot responsibly accept their proposed 23% increase. Both class size limits and the union's planning proposal will create mandatory staffing levels, requiring us to hire over 500 new teachers when we have declining enrollment. Strike or no strike, our fixed revenue limits us all. It is our reality. Our current proposal on the table right now will require immediate budget cuts this year and years into the future. That simply isn't sustainable. And it's also true that a PAT strike will have a detrimental effect on our students and our schools. It will compound the negative impacts of the previous pandemic school closures, including learning loss, concerns about students' mental health, and a lack of access to trusted adults. It will have the largest and hardest impacts on our most vulnerable students. As educators, we know that is not what is best for our students. We understand we have significant disagreements on critical issues. We can only bridge these and reach agreement through dialogue, cooperation, and compromise, and an acknowledgement that we do not have the resources to cover their proposals.
You mentioned the deal for elementary teachers. So was for middle and high school, is that completely different? Is that not agreed upon?
We offered the 440 minutes at the elementary level, and we would like the contract language that stands for a period of release time for our middle and high school educators to remain.
Is there anything you specifically would like to say to families as we're on the verge of the strike?
Sure. We want our families to please stay and keep updated with us. We have a communication that just went out at about 1 p.m. to all of our families, letting them know that we'll be communicating with them daily to let them know whether or not schools will be open the following day.
Dr. Adams, is there a response yet from PAT about the latest offer?
Not yet. But my understanding is the mediator has provided our proposal to them. So we're waiting a response. I'll be heading right back there as soon as we're done here.
And when was that provided?
The timing of that, I want to say our team was meeting with, the mediator is going back and forth. So our team was meeting with the mediator around 2:30 or so. And so they came back a little before 3. And we're now just waiting to hear if PAT will respond to that offer. Appreciate the question. Yes, just delivered, yes.
The last proposal we know of, you guys proposed a 7.5% increase in wages. Has that moved up or down?
We've not moved on compensation because we've moved 4 times to date.
When will we officially know if there's not going to be any school tomorrow?
We intend to, we'll know as soon as PAT lets us know what they're choosing to do. We've told our families that we will let them know by 7 p.m. tonight.
Will you be mediating it as far as it goes all night, or will there be a cutoff?
Unknown at this time. PAT did let us know that they did not intend to mediate through the night and into the morning. So we're waiting for them to tell us what they're choosing to do, whether that is a response to our proposal or a sort of we're done for the night and we'll make our choices to strike in the morning.
We've heard that some paraeducators are being asked to help coach reading
Yes.
And they're getting students' names to help during the strike. Can you talk about that?
Sure. What we're doing is we're targeting reading coaching support to students in grades kindergarten through third grade who show being risked for not being on track for reading. We're providing training to our paraeducators, and reading support and instructional support is something that they do every day. I was a paraeducator, it's how I started my career, so I'm very familiar with that work, and we're grateful to have them helping in this regard. So our students are connected to a trusted adult, and they have some reinforcement of skills that have already been taught.
And what does that training look like?
I can't speak to what the training looks like exactly because I'm not the person in charge of the program. Sorry about that.
Dr. Adams, can you tell us if you've had any, or the district has had any contact with legislative leaders, not the governor, but legislative leaders, about any sort of emergency appropriation from the state that could be aimed at closing the gap?
Not that I'm aware of, Julia.
Do we know if any students were leaving the district?
Not at this time. Of course, we want our students to stay with us. We want to have a trusting relationship between the district, the Teachers Association, and our families. And we know that some families have communicated to us and to the association that they might choose to take their students' education elsewhere in the event of a strike.
Can you share any specific changes y'all have made from your last conversation?
Well, we wanted to address the PAT's concerns about environmental things that have to do with the health and safety in the building and working conditions, and so we've proposed some language to do just that.
Any changes to planning time?
We went up to 440 minutes in our proposal today for elementary educators.
Got it. Not just special needs educators, but
All elementary educators. I'm tripping over my words.
Part of this conversation, are you talking about the Central AC? Are you talking about enrollment issues that teachers have brought up? Can you speak to what exactly?
Sure. We've been talking mostly about things like excessive heat, when there are instances where it's cold and boilers aren't working, what will our response be and what can happen? When there is a leak in the roof or the ceiling, what administrators may or may not be able to do.
And you spoke to the reading concerns of students up to date. What are your other concerns if students are out of school for a prolonged time, especially after the pandemic?
Sure, we certainly know that our students need more time with their trusted adults than not, and they need more time with their school teams than not. And so we also know from our recent OSAS results that we're showing some promising gains in pandemic recovery. And of course, a prolonged work stoppage and a prolonged instance where students are not in school will put those gains at risk and possibly set us back. We're hoping that it's not the case.
Dr. Adams, can you talk about makeup days a little bit? I understand that there's 3 days on the calendar that are set aside for snow days that we could potentially add. I've heard some talk about President's Day weekend. But if we are out for, say, 2 weeks, how does the district approach that with ODE?
That's a great question. I'm not able to go into specifics at the moment. We will of course try to make up instructional time as much as we can, and we won't know how much obviously we'll need to make up until we know if there's a strike and when the strike ends. It's just a little premature for that at the moment.
So then how are you guys ever going to get the teachers back?
Well, I think, as I've said before, it's going to take compromise on both sides, right? We know that our proposal on the table now will require budget cuts this year and future years. We know that every dollar we increase will mean more cuts this year and future years. And we know that the Association of Teachers has not moved off their original compensation ask. And so bargaining requires compromise by both parties. We need them to make some movement towards us as well.
Yesterday, Governor Kuchek said in a press conference that it'll likely be 2025 before any serious conversations can be had about more money for education. In the meantime, what does the district like the schools do?
I think we're in a more positive space because we do have a very limited amount of reserves. There are districts right behind us in this bargaining process with their associations of teachers that don't have a rainy day fund. And so it would be my hope that we can have the quality education model fully funded going forward and sooner than 2025.
Dr. Adams, has the district offered any specific cuts to that PAT has identified as places where they feel there's, overspending and load?
So we've been looking at possibilities of cuts across the board, not knowing yet what the actual amount of cuts will have to be because we haven't finalized an agreement with the association, right? But all things are on the table at the moment, including obviously cuts to central office hiring freezes, reductions in contracts. But we know that 90% of our funds are in schools, that 80% of our funds pay for people. So at some point it will become impossible to not have the cuts impact the student learning experience, and we want to avoid that as much as possible.
Are there any other mediation sessions scheduled beyond today?
Not at this time. The mediator will give us some availability, we're hoping beginning tomorrow, and then we'll be ready and willing whenever those days are, day, night, weekend, we're ready and to sit at the table and continue working through our differences.
And if there is a strike tomorrow, what's your plan tomorrow?
Well, I do plan to drive past the schools in my neighborhood and visit some of those administrators on my way into work to show support for them because they'll be needing to be in the building. And then I have some meetings scheduled. I haven't been able to get any of my other work done with all this very important work at the forefront. Thank you. Thank y'all.